So Nico Harrison hasn't, and I can't necessarily blame him, hasn't had a media session, I don't think, since the trade, right? Since the trade of Luka Doncic. In return, they got Anthony Davis. He had a closed door meeting or closed door session with reporters today, and there were no recording devices allowed in. Um, Ilo, you have more of the details of that meeting. Share them if you would.
Thanks to a hard-working employee with the Dallas Morning News, Mike Curtis, who transcribed the entire news conference, which is a difficult thing because, as you said, no recording devices were allowed. Perhaps Mr. Curtis took a stenography class in college as an elective. It paid off today, baby. All right, so let's start with some of the key things that he said. First of all, regarding any regrets about the Anthony Davis trade, he said, yeah, there's no regrets on the trade. Part of my job is to do the best thing for the Mavericks, not only today, but in the future. Some of the decisions I'm going to make are going to be unpopular, and that's my job, and I have to stand by it. One last thing, I'll also add that every trade I've done has been met with high scrutiny, and so eventually I'll earn the trust of this community back. Some of these trades are going to work out, and they have at a high level, unquote.
Yeah, so why are you laughing?
I'm not laughing at you, I'm laughing at him.
Did he do a good job putting in their team went to the NBA Finals last year?
What have you done for me lately, baby? But I'm willing to go with your line of thinking.
No, you're not. You're laughing at him for stating something that he's doing. What it's like. I don't understand why so many have lost track of this. Look, I will restate my feelings. I completely understand, without knowing so many of the details, why they felt the need, why they were ticked off at Luka. Right? Like, again, we got the same thing on a different level here, right? There are guys where, end of the season, they come in asking for money or more money than whatever they were getting last year. And you're like, dude, you didn't have that good a year. You didn't practice nearly as much as you could have. Like, why am I signing up for that? The reality is some of those guys know they're hard to replace. And Luka is impossible to replace. Impossible. So there's a lot we don't know. But his point should be well taken, which is like, hey, all the moves we made last year ended up in the NBA Finals. So I lose all credibility because I make a trade that you don't like, and we don't actually get a chance to see the short-term outcome from our side of the trade because Anthony Davis was hurt and now Kyrie Irving is hurt. I don't understand. If you're trying to re-earn trust, though, why would you not let cameras in there?
Bingo!
Jay Stu, can you hypothesize over that one? Like what the thinking would be, or what, I don't get that one.
So the last time he spoke, remember, it was that awkward exchange right after the trade with Jason Kidd. And he made some comments, just strange comments. It was something like, yeah, and if it doesn't work out, you guys could kill us or something. And it was just weird. So I'm guessing the closed session was a result of like people making his comments go viral and the memes and making fun of him and dragging his team through the mud. Because no matter how you position this, I don't think anybody from Nico Harrison to Mark Cuban to anybody thought it was going to go this far south. The fan reaction in Dallas, I don't think anyone anticipated that. So his lack of acknowledging that in this is really strange. I think him saying that he plans to live out his contract for the next 3 years, yeah, he plans on that. But, I mean, he'll also take the buyout, I'm sure, if the fallout becomes worse. But the decision to do it closed was so that he couldn't become a viral meme like he did the last time.
Makes sense. Profet, what do you think?
On Nico?
Yeah.
I just keep thinking about how much faith has been blown up with Dallas Mavericks fans. And I don't know. I feel like this, if I was in the shoes, I would probably not have decided to close off recording devices, because it sends a message, and it, more than anything, it throws a gauntlet at journalists' feet and says, all right, well, I'm trying to restrict you in this way and make you work harder. And as we just saw from Ilo, someone did work harder on it, and just sends a message that, like, I'm not saying he's scared, but like it does send a message that, like, you want this level of control and, you know, and control over a narrative that, quite honestly, has been beyond your purview for a very long time. It looks small. It looks incredibly small, if nothing else.
I actually, I hadn't thought of it in the way in which Jay Stu presented it, and I think it sounds pretty accurate, right? Like, if you're going to have an open discussion, why don't you do it? Because you don't want to become a meme. I think the problem is, here's the interesting part of Mavericks fans. They don't actually matter. Now, they'll matter if they stop showing up, if they don't buy season tickets next year, if there's a massive revolt over anybody wanting to buy season tickets. I don't think that'll actually be the case, because you'll still have Kyrie Irving and Anthony Davis next year and probably add somebody else. But that's the only way. See, in college sports, if they stop supporting you, that doesn't matter. If they stop supporting you with money, now all of a sudden you have no chance. Right? And that's really the donors. In the NBA, local average fanboy doesn't actually matter. It doesn't. You know, the arena doesn't have to be completely full, because that's like seventh in the revenue stream. They make most of their money off of TV and other things, so corporate ads. Now, if they lose the corporate ads, if they lose all kinds of, nobody goes to the games, all of those things, then yeah, now you got a big problem in your hand. You got to get rid of your GM. But in the meantime, this feels like a lost year. You get Kyrie back. You try and build a championship caliber roster in the upcoming offseason. And you're just going to have to let history play out and hope that the thing turns. That's the only thing you can do. I don't like that he has no regrets. Not that it's his fault that Anthony Davis got hurt or that Kyrie Irving got hurt. I would have worded it differently. I would have said, I think regrets is strong. I think, are there things that I wish would have happened or would have happened since? Absolutely. Absolutely. And we learn from everything we do, positively and negatively. So are there some things? Yeah. Do I wish we could have gotten a little bit more? Sure. Do I wish Anthony Davis wouldn't have gotten hurt? Maybe we played him too soon before he was ready initially? Absolutely. Do I wish Kyrie Irving hadn't gotten hurt? Yeah. Do I think in my mind, gosh, if we had held back on playing Anthony Davis early on and he had been healthy, would Kyrie have been hurt? So, yeah, there's regrets. But do I regret making the trade? Again, I can't speak to you. I can't speak for it. I don't think that's a situation in which he can say, I regret making the trade, because that would tell Anthony Davis he doesn't think Anthony Davis is as good as his perception of it, which, one, I don't think is true, and two, I don't think now that you're in business with Anthony Davis you want to do.
Hey, Doug, as a sports media veteran, and I'll add Jason and Chris to this, have any of you ever heard of a scenario in which a player or an executive or a coach had a news conference with reporters, but cameras and recording devices were not allowed? I have never heard of that in a sports media sense. I don't even think Gorbachev did it back in the 80s. Have you guys ever heard of anything where cameras and recording devices were not allowed for a media opportunity?
No, I have not.
And all things being equal, I'll pose this as well.
Real fast.
No, go ahead.
I wanted to answer before you move on. That one time that Newt Rockney told us that you're not going to have recording devices or cameras in the locker room. That was the only time.
It was on a train. It was on a 3-day train ride to a road game at USC. But I'll also throw this out from a perception standpoint. Let's say this trade was made, same basketball trade, but it was handled from a PR and optics standpoint as well as you possibly could have. Let's say, all things being equal, it was like Steve Kerr, the head coach, and Bob Myers, the former general manager of the Warriors, or someone highly respected, doing everything publicly the right way, but the basketball part of the trade was still exactly the same. What would the perception publicly among the fans be if at least it was handled as best as it could have optically?
Wait, how would you have handled it differently optically?
Any way better than the Mavericks presently handled it, because you have the trade itself, but also kind of the smug public optics, the reports of confiscating signs and things like that.
I don't know if that's smug. I do think, yes, they've been overreactive to that. I just, again, if you're willing to make the trade, you got to be willing to hear the pushback. It's the same thing where if you're willing to play professionally, you got to be willing to get booed and jeered and all this other stuff. So I don't know if that's smug, but I don't think that has to do with PR with the trade. The trade itself, I actually think, again, supposedly they called all these other teams with star players. I would have waited till the offseason, but for whatever reason, they felt like the urgency was now. And I do think had Anthony Davis been healthy, they might have had a chance to get back to the NBA Finals, a greater chance than even with Luka healthy playing for the Mavericks this year. But I would agree with you that the taking away the signs is not a smart way to do it.
I think if there's just anything that really needs to be quashed, and I'm not even sure how the Mavericks or Nico does this, but this almost feels like an ownership thing that you have to reaffirm your position in Dallas, because right now the big conspiracy going around, and it's got enough legs on, like, people are still trying to figure out the logic of trading away Luka, and while there is some rational explanations for it, it has left enough oxygen in the room of, hey, we're tanking everything so we can try to move this team to Vegas because ownership wants this hybrid arena/casino that they're not getting in Dallas. You like, Dallas is the third largest television market in the country. It
doesn't make any sense.
I know, but there's still enough light cracked
No,
in
there's
that
not.
needs to be.
Stop. Don't do that. Don't do that. We can find a conspiracy in everything, Chris. Like, that's what we give oxygen to with all these idiots that are now in office. We give oxygen to things that are just not real. Like, they're not moving the Dallas Mavericks to Vegas. It's not happening. The NBA is going to hand out a new franchise to somebody. Do you know why? They make more money that way with more teams. They're not going to vacate it because they're not getting their way with a new arena. Like, that's just not going to happen, and there's no way to tank a team in order to get Anthony Davis. So did they make Kyrie Irving get hurt? That doesn't make any sense.
So what's the downside then of just reaffirming your commitment to Dallas? What's the downside? Just saying that. That should be
what
free
do you
then.
have to reaffirm your commitment to Dallas? Again, this is like they got to reaffirm your commitment to the United States. Reaffirm what commitment?
By the way, I just Googled Dallas and conspiracy theory, and I got a whole lot of results.
Oh my God.
There's no magic bullet in the Nico Harrison case.
Yeah.
Good.
But
You don't understand the logic in trading away Luka Doncic?
He's a patsy. Sorry.
No, I'm asking an honest question, Chris. Like,
Oh, you're asking me this.
he
No.
would refuse to get into shape on a yearly basis. It was probably getting worse, not better.
I understand all
Okay.
that. I know the logical reason for it, but
No, you kind of dismissed it. You're like, well,
No,
they can come up with some. If we
believe-
play back the tape, it sounded like you don't buy any of it, and that what you do buy is, hey, there's just this conspiracy theory out here that you could kind of see. No, you can't.
No, I buy that what they would get rid of Luka Doncic because of all this stuff about not being the shape. I disagree with it, and I think it's a very dumb decision to get rid of him.
And at least Chris allowed himself to be recorded, unlike Nico.
Fair.
good point.
Yep.
That's
We're
a fair
recording.
point.
But I will say this. So it kind of makes you rethink this, the way that they've handled this PR-wise. And I just thought of another misstep along the way, by the way. Remember Jason Kidd last week said it was really cool. It's kind of like the Babe Ruth trade. They're going to
Yes,
talk about
that was an all-time. But Perfect, did you hear that one?
They're just bungling this thing.
I mean,
No,
that one was.
I think I missed
that
this
was an.
one.
Oh, you got to go Google. Show them where that is in the system.
Yeah,
he's like,
I've been
people compare this to the Babe Ruth trade, which I think is pretty cool.
Oh
like,
no, I remember.
yeah,
Okay, I remember this
Yeah,
now.
they're
Okay,
not
now you've jogged my memory.
Jason, that's actually not who you want to be compared to. It's like the old. Other than that, Mrs. Lincoln, how was the show? Oh yeah, Abraham Lincoln. He loves watching plays. Like no, not this one.
Today's the anniversary of that, by the way.
Of Abraham Lincoln being assassinated by John Wilkes Booth.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Oh, that resonated.
This is my point. Was this a call by ownership for either not wanting to commit that kind of money and whatnot? And they basically said, Nico, make the trade behind closed doors. Nobody knew about it. All the insiders were completely in the dark. Make this trade, just make this go away, and then you take the bullets. And this closed door thing doesn't happen. Can't be Nico's call, because I think the conversation for the next 24 hours, and you can count on this, it's going to be how he ran from the media. He wasn't stand up. Nobody closes doors in this day and age. He's hiding something. That decision had to come from the head of communications who answers to the ownership, because this whole thing is strange. So maybe that was it. Maybe we always thought that this was just a Nico Harrison move, right?
Well, I think Nico has had infatuation with Anthony Davis from his time at Nike. Like, he thinks Anthony Davis, and if you go back and you watch the Lakers when they won an NBA title, Anthony Davis was the biggest reason they won that title, right? Whereas I do think that there's between Nico and ownership, there was hey, this upcoming offseason, we either have to pay this guy $350 million. And if we pay $350 million to a guy who making half of that doesn't even want to get in shape, drinks a ton in the offseason, then we're the dumbest people ever. Right? Recommitting to somebody who has not committed to off-season conditioning and to really getting after it. So, yeah, I mean, again, do I see there being a world where the owners are like, I'm not paying, top dollar for that guy. I'm not doing it. And then Nico had to figure it out? Sure. I don't know. I was with you with the logic with wanting to avoid being a meme or having his picture or those quotes be on every sports TV show in America. But now you're going to have quotes, and now you're going to have the downs. Do people check out the downside? Because the downside to not having the TV cameras in there is stuff like this, where now we leave it ambiguous. We don't know how things were said and what got into that conversation, as opposed to if it was a press conference that ran live, we'd at least be able to understand context.